All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a request from Anne McLean. Again, thank you. I appreciate you. Now, she put me up to a new, to me, new artist, Kenny Rogers, with the song The Gambler. And all the information I got is that he always tells a story. So we're going to be paying good attention to the story being told. We're going to also pay attention to the vocals and everything else surrounding the music. It's country rock, and that's all I know, guys. So Kenny Rogers, let's dive straight into this. Don't forget to subscribe, check him out, his music, and let's see it.
On a warm summer's evening, on a train bound for nowhere, I met up with a gambler. We were both too tired to sleep, so we took turns of staring out the window at the darkness till boredom overtook us and he began to speak.
Dude, I have to say, this vocals is something I've never heard before. And it's not only because I'm listening to Kenny Rogers for the first time, this is such a unique voice. In many ways, like, I don't know, it feels like this voice has been through something. Like you can feel the experience in the voice. And I don't mean like a practice, but experience from life. Like you can immediately feel that.
Summer's evening, on a train bound for nowhere, I met up with a gambler. We were both too tired to sleep, so we took turns of staring out the window at the darkness till boredom overtook us and he began to speak. He said, son, I've made a life out of reading people's faces and knowing what the cards were by the way they held their eyes. So if you don't mind my saying, I can see you're out of aces. For a taste of your whiskey, I'll give you some advice.
Damn, what a nice metaphor, actually. So I can see that you're out of aces. It's coming from somebody who gambles a lot, plays poker, is playing a lot with cards, and seeing, I can see you're all out of aces is basically saying, I can see you're kind of through it. You know, you're kind of feeling under the weather. And for a sip of your whiskey, I'll give you some advice. That's powerful shit.
Whiskey, I'll give you some advice. So I handed him my bottle and he drank down my last swallow. Then he bummed a cigarette and asked me for a light. And the night got deathly quiet and his face lost all expression. Said, if you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta learn to play it right. You got to know when to hold up, know when to fold up.
Yep.
Know when to walk away and know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done.
So these are all like, for the people who don't, I've not played poker too much, but I know enough to be able to say it's Texas Hold'em. So you got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them. So when you give up, and you don't count your money until the dealing's done, right? You don't fiddle around with the money until you're done with the game, so to say.
Every gambler knows that the secret to surviving is knowing what to throw away, knowing what to keep. 'Cause every hand's a winner and every hand's a loser, and the best that you can hope for is to die in your sleep. And when he'd finished speaking, he turned back toward the window, crushed out his cigarette, faded off to sleep. And somewhere in the darkness, the gambler, he broke even. But in his final words, I found an ace that I could keep. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, and know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting the dealing's done, you got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, and know when to run. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting. When the dealing's done, you got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, and know when to run. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting. When the deal is done.
Yes, sir. That was Kenny Rogers. Give it up. What an amazing story. I think that the thing that I learned from this story is in the chorus, actually. Because, you know, you got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them. You got to know when to walk away. You got to know when you got to run. This does not only apply to poker, guys. This applies to life in general. You got to know who you roll with. You got to know when to run away from someone. Not physically, literally, but you know what I mean. You know, sometimes you got to know when to just admit that you're defeat, when to fold them, right? These are not only Texas Hold'em poker rules. These could also be interpreted as ways of how to approach life in general, right? Sometimes you got to walk away, man. Sometimes you got to grab your chance. Sometimes you got to just give it up. Sometimes you got to run. Sometimes you got to get the fuck out of there, you know what I mean? Because it's danger or it's whatever. So, yeah, it's a gambler story. And that's only the wrapping of the gift. But then you open the gift and it's actually great life advice. And even though, if I'm thinking about it now, it's quite basic advice. Sometimes we need to hear the basic advice for rinse and repeat purposes, right? For purposes of, sometimes you got to hear those basics again, man. Because we humans like to overthink. We like to think we know better, bigger, whatever. Sometimes you got to take a step back and know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk, and know when to run away. You know what I mean? So, my conclusion is exactly like I said. Gambler story is the wrapping. The gift inside is a beautiful story mixed with some actual life advice that applies to everybody. And it doesn't matter if you're a millionaire, billionaire, or can barely break even at the end of the month. This is something that applies to everybody. So please go check out Kenny Rogers. Thank you so much for the request. And this was a gambler's story. The Gambler.